This coffee scale costs $50 and it has, of course, all your basics like timer and tare, but it's also got smart mode, which you can use for pour over and espresso. Does it do the basics well? And are the smart modes worth it and easy to use? Let's find out. This coffee scale from a company called MHW-3Bomber. They're a company that manufactures and sells coffee gear, and they're based in China, and their stuff is really great. They've been around since 2016. And from what I can tell, they have good stuff. It's not generic. You can tell that they've been doing some design thinking, innovation. In fact, this is their coffee scale Cube 2.0. That is an improved version of their original coffee scale. I couldn't find anything about what MHW-3Bomber meant. It's a very clear aerospace plain aesthetic. They have a Cube 2.0 and they have a Cube 2.0 mini. This is the 2.0 regular size. This costs 50 Canadian dollars, 45 USD. Their mini is at 45 Canadian, 42 USD at the time of the filming of this video. Their shipping time frame was up to 4 weeks. It took exactly 2 weeks for it to arrive on the east coast of Canada. Now between the Cube 2.0 and the Cube 2.0 mini, they have the exact same features. The only difference is the battery size and the size of the two devices. Both have tare, timer, 2 units of weight, so grams and ounces. They also have a weighing range of 0.3 grams all the way up to 2,000 grams. And they both have an accuracy of up to 0.1 grams. And they both have smart mode that you can use for pour over and espresso. On the back side of the scale, it says if you have the 2.0 or the mini. The Cube 2.0 is 124 by 124 by 22 millimeters. And the Cube 2.0 mini is 104, 104, and 19 millimeters. They're not a huge difference in size. I did do a little cutout of the shape and I almost got the 2.0 mini, but this is actually very small, I find, as is. Like, this is me holding it and I have pretty small hands. This was way sufficient, I feel, for pour over and espresso. Another key difference is the battery size. And this one, you have a 1500 milliampere. On the mini, you have a 700 milliampere, which is less than half of the battery life. This one would just run longer. So unless there's a reason for you to have the small one, my personal preference is just to go for the 2.0. They are also both Type-C USB charge, which you have right on the side here. In the instruction manual, they mentioned to not use a fast charger as that could damage the battery. That's just standard. You also can't use it while it's charging. The battery life is good so far. I've had this scale for a few weeks now and I still haven't had to charge it. There is also a battery life indicator on the scale. So I'm already at 2 out of 3 bars. This comes in 2 different colors. You have the black version, which I have right here, and then you have the white. You can see it has a nice matte finish. It has a physical button on the side. You have your Type-C charger. It's waterproof, but you still have to be careful and use logic. Like, don't have this sitting in a puddle of water. You don't want to have any water going to the USB outlet. There is a little rubber protector, but still, if water splashes and gets into here somehow and then really manages to get in, then you might be in trouble. You can still wipe it down. I've put water on top of it to clean it. So just exercise. Basic caution. It comes with this little removable mat as well. And if you turn it over, it has the cute logo that is the Bomber fighter pilot thingy. The reason that this is removable is you could reverse it and put it on the scale, put your portafilter on here for espresso. This just helps to keep your portafilter up as you weigh your coffee and your dose. You could probably use this as a tamping mat too if you were really being minimal. I like where they were going with this. I think that the innovation is great. I would have preferred it to just be solid. Like my other coffee scale was just an entire rubber mat, not removable. I mean, technically it was removable. It was entirely covered with the rubber and it didn't come off because I find that it's inconvenient a little bit when I want to move the scale and the rubber mat will move or come off, or I have to be a bit more careful with holding it or adapt how I hold it, which is not a big deal, or putting double-sided tape to keep it down because I don't need this functionality personally. To turn it on, you have this physical switch here. There's no indication, there's no color code. It would have been nice if they just had a little orange right here just to indicate, hey, this is off, kind of like on the iPhone silent mode, but also not a big deal. It's very easy to use, you figure it out very quickly. To turn it on, you have 2 different versions. You can have it in the middle and you'll use the coffee scale without any sound, or you flip the switch all the way to the end, which is my preference. And that way you have sound. And then you see the little icon here. If you go to the middle, there is no icon. There is no sound anytime you do anything. I prefer having the sound on because I can hear when I'm pressing. If I had it on quiet mode, I find it would be a lot harder to use. This is in quiet mode. See, I don't have any tactile feedback as it's a touch screen, and I don't have any audible feedback. Maybe you're in a small place with somebody and this could be a little bit loud, you can't adjust the volume, so that could be a reason where you would need to have it low volume. I like this physical switch button as well because I've definitely brought my coffee scale in the past traveling, and this physical switch prevents from turning on accidentally. Normally I have the physical switch on all the time. You can actually turn it on by pressing here. To turn it off, you can long press here, or you could always use a physical switch. I do not find it difficult in any way to actually press the buttons. I think that there's a large enough button clicking area to avoid any issue. If your physical switch is on, if you put anything on the scale that's 100 grams or more for at least 2 seconds, it will auto turn on. It is actually a very smart scale. It needs to read some sort of stability. See, that doesn't want to turn on. But the moment I put this on, it knows. They did a really good job with the programming of this thing and the detections and everything. Nice, clear, big numbers. I think it's clearer on the black version than the white version. Very simple, 2 buttons to control everything. So you double tap that, it goes to ounces, you double tap it, goes to grams. It remembers the unit that you're using. So if I turn it off, it's in ounces because that's what I last set it at. Now I'm back to grams. Anytime you want to tare, it's not T. T is for timer. That can be perhaps a little confusing because your power button is away from the weight. I don't think it's actually going to show power to use, power to turn on. T is for timer. So if I were to press T, the timer would start. You could press T to timer on and off manually if that's what you want to do. Long press to return it back to 0. All very intuitive to use. It also has an auto shut off if it detects no activity for 2 minutes. The instruction manual also said if the timer function is on and there's inactivity, it will auto shut off. Now I believe what that means is that if you have the timer function on and it doesn't detect a change in the weight, that's basically inactivity, then after 10 minutes it will shut off. Those are all the different basic functionalities. And while we're here, I'm just gonna take a moment to thank you for liking this video. It really does help with the algorithm. Let's talk about using smart mode. If you double press power, you get into smart mode. That little droplet means that you're in smart mode. And you can use smart mode for 2 different things. You could use it for pour over and you could use it for espresso. This smart scale is actually truly smart. This one, my old scale, there were 4 different modes and I had to choose the mode I wanted to use, and then I had to follow the sequence exactly. And it was a little bit complicated to use. In the instruction manual and on their product page, it shows you a bunch of sequences and it seems like it's difficult to figure out. And oh, what if I don't do the sequence properly? In reality, I played with this a few times. The sequence doesn't actually matter that much, and I'll explain. To start the recording of any type of data on the smart mode, you need to record the dose of the coffee with the T when you're in smart mode, and then it needs that low continuous flow in order for it to register, which works very well naturally on pour over. And then to stop it, you need to remove the weight. That's generally how this works. So the sequence is less important for you to remember exactly because you could tear as many times as you want, essentially. On their product page, they talk about this chip that has this embedded liquid detection that can automatically identify the water flow during brewing and extraction. That low flow of water is very different from accidental tap, moving things, taking a cup off. I've done it where I was just on purpose pushing on it and playing around with it, or even pushing on it very lightly to mimic water flow, but it wasn't light enough to actually mimic water flow. So they programmed something in there that basically accidental taps and presses and all that stuff doesn't affect anything. So when you're in pour over mode, you would basically tear as many times as you need, all the way up until putting the coffee into your brewer. And then you would record the coffee by pressing T. The droplet now flashes to show that it's recorded the coffee dose. After that, the timer will automatically start when you start pouring your coffee in. And then when you're done, you remove the carafe to stop the timer, and it will record all the information. It'll show you what your coffee ratio is. It'll show you how much time you brewed it in. There's only one smart mode, so if you were to use smart mode for espresso, it works a little bit differently, but not really in terms of the logic of the scale. So you would tear your portafilter, you would put your coffee dose, and then you would press T to record that coffee dose even before grinding. Then you grind your coffee as you normally do, and you set everything up for your machine, and then you put your cup onto the coffee scale. You don't need to do anything, it will auto tear itself. And then you just brew your espresso. Now the only downside to this is that the timer on the machine only counts from when it starts detecting a couple first drops. Since I weigh my maple syrup in milk, and that the milk will trigger the smart mode auto start, if I use smart mode for espresso, I will record the dose after I've grinded my coffee. And this proves that you do not need to follow their sequence, just the logic of recording the dose and the flow starting the timer in smart mode. But most of the time, I just use the regular tare on the scale and don't bother with smart mode, as I don't really need it when it comes to espresso. I do use it once in a while because I find it fun to see what the ratio is after the fact. The downside for espresso as well, in order to stop the timer and get that ratio, you need to remove the cup off of the scale so that it detects that drastic change in weight. It's fast, it's responsive. When you tare, you don't even need to wait for the numbers to settle, it knows. On the underside, you have these two very large rubber mats instead of 4 feet at the corners. So this helps to register any weight differences quite well because there's a larger surface area to check for the weight. On my old coffee scale, you had this all around the entire outside here. This worked really well too, but this is just sleeker. I think it's two versions that are quite similar. I mean, they could have continued it here, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm going to assume that they did their research. It's such a small coffee scale as well. If you have an espresso machine, if you have a really tiny drip tray, you would just want to make sure that you can get most of this on the drip tray so that I can detect the weight. On the Breville dual boiler, I don't have any issues, and I think a lot of other espresso machines have an even more flat drip tray. This would probably fit just fine. Is this worth $50 Canadian? Absolutely yes. I think it's comparable to a lot of other coffee scales that offer the same similar features: accuracy, response time, great design. It's overall a really great scale for pour over espresso. It's nice to use, it's small, it's sleek. I would only see myself changing to another coffee scale if I completely changed price categories and quality and tier. Not even quality, but more tier in terms of features, and that would be more in the $300, where it'd be like the Kaya Lunar or like the Bluetooth, or like some coffee scales that have real-time flow, for example, but that's in a very different price category. That's 6 times the price of this coffee scale. If you want a basic, good coffee scale, this is it. And it's not even basic because it has that smart mode. I highly recommend this. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not too, that this is a great coffee scale. I think it's comparable if you're looking at Timemore coffee scales and other basic coffee scales. I think that you should really consider this one as well. If you're planning on getting a no-name, cheaper coffee scale on Amazon, maybe go for this one instead. What else do you need that's really great? Well, you could check out my video right here for probably the best coffee tamper that you could possibly get for espresso. You check that out right here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.